Okay, everybody open to page 45 of your purple hibiscus text. Mrs. Rebecca, the ever pregnant SS2 literature in English teacher, lazily slumped into her squeaky wooden chair like it owed her a favor. She adjusted her wide gown over her belly and waved two fingers in the air, calling out without energy. Ezekiel, she barked. Ma? The class captain responded, already half rising from his seat. Rush to the tuck shop and get me a chilled bottle of Fanta and egg roll. I said chilled though. Don't come back here with bottle that they just put inside blocks of ice. I will break your head. The class erupted in laughter. A few students clapped as Ezekiel grinned and darted out of the room with the crisp 500 naira note she handed him. As the door slammed shut behind him, Mrs. Rebecca's voice rang again. Eh, where are those still owing me purple hibiscus in this class? She scanned the classroom like a hawk. Students sat up straighter, trying not to meet her eyes. She squinted. Christiana, a girl who usually sat quietly at the back of the class, stood up, her knees almost knocking together. Her uniform hung a little loose on her thin frame. Her brown sandals scraped against the floor as she shifted her weight nervously. Christiana, open to page 45 of your purple hibiscus and read for the class, Mrs. Rebecca said, already pulling out her red pen with a sigh. Christiana stood frozen, her lips trembling. Her eyes darted around as though hoping the page would appear in her hands. Yes, don't waste the time of the class. Where is your purple hibiscus? The teacher snapped. Christina began to shake her head, her voice barely rising above a whisper. My daddy said he doesn't have the money yet, but he will. Mrs. Rebecca cut in with the speed of thunder. Christiana, your father doesn't have 1,500 naira to give you to purchase novel. Or Diego. I wonder how he even manages to pay your school fees. She laughed bitterly and turned to the rest of the class. This is what I hate. Irresponsible parents. Why have children if you know you can't take care of basic needs? Common textbook you cannot buy. The room had fallen into an uneasy hush. I sell these things at discounted rates to you students, and common 1,500 naira you cannot bring. Look at the whole class. After 3 weeks, you are the only one left. Christiana's mouth was trembling now. Her hands clutched the hem of her skirt as hot tears spilled down her cheeks. And then she broke, loud, messy sobs that echoed across the silent classroom like a cracked bell. Ha! Why are you crying? Did I beat you? Mrs. Rebecca said, more annoyed than moved. She flicked her wrist toward Christiana's seat. Sit down, Jare. Christiana obeyed immediately, collapsing into her chair and burying her face in her arms on the desk. We are still in class, madam. Raise your head up and listen to others read, since you don't have to read by yourself, before you fail my exam. There was a pause, like the whole room had swallowed air and couldn't exhale. Christina reluctantly lifted her head. Her eyes were red and swollen, her cheeks wet, but she stared blankly at the chalkboard, willing herself not to break again. The whole class was silent as a pin, everyone pretending to focus on their books. But one pair of eyes wasn't pretending. One person was looking at Christiana with a kind of quiet pain that didn't match the other's studied indifference. It was Joanne, the school principal's daughter. Joanne had come to her seat after the literature in English period was over. Christiana's head was still buried in the crook of her arms, unmoving, as if the desk could somehow hide her from the world. She barely flinched when she felt gentle fingers thread through her braids. Don't mind that woman, Joanne whispered, her voice soft and careful, like she was scared Christiana might shatter if she raised it. She's just a thief, using our money for her own personal needs. Christiana didn't respond. Her head stayed down, her body trembling in that quiet, stubborn way sadness clings when it doesn't want to be noticed. Stop crying, dear, Joanne continued. If you keep crying like this, others will think you are very weak and they'll want to test you more just to see if they too can pull a tear out of you. That's how secondary school is. Wicked people everywhere. Christina sniffled but didn't look up. Joanne leaned closer. My older sister and brother have copies of Purple Hibiscus gathering dust at home. I'll bring one for you. That did the trick. Christiana slowly lifted her head, her eyes swollen and rimmed red. You bring one for me? She asked, voice hoarse, trying to clear her throat through the tightness. Joanne smiled softly. I can see that made you feel better. Yes, I'll give you. But right now, you need to go and wash your face before Mr. Matthew comes in. Christiana immediately shook her head, panic flickering in her eyes. You know Mr. Matthew is very wicked. If I come late to his class, I'll serve punishment. No, you won't. 5 minutes have already passed and he hasn't shown up. Just hurry up before he does. Christiana nodded hesitantly, pushing back her chair. Her legs wobbled slightly as she stood, but she steadied herself and hurried out of the class. She returned just in time, face damp and clean, before Mr. Matthew entered with his infamous scowl and thunderous voice. The double mathematics period felt like a weight, but at least Christiana wasn't the center of ridicule anymore. When the bell rang for break, the class erupted in noise. Students dashed out like freed prisoners, books forgotten on desks, wrappers flying from horrid snacks. Christiana stayed seated. She quietly pulled out her notebook and started walking through the mathematics homework Mr. Matthew had scribbled on the board. Her brows furrowed in concentration, pen tapping slightly as she tried to solve the first problem. Joanne watched from her seat across the room. Then she stood. She walked over and nudged Christiana's desk lightly. Come, let's go to the talk shop together. Are you not hungry? Christiana smiled faintly and shook her head. I'm not hungry. I'll eat when I get back home. Ha! You know today is Monday and sports day. We are not closing until 5 p.m. You have to eat, oh. I'll buy meat pie and chilled Fanta for you. At that moment, Christiana's stomach betrayed her with a loud, unmistakable grumble. The two girls stared at each other for a bit and then burst out laughing. I thought you said you were not hungry, Joanne teased, eyes twinkling. Christiana covered her face in embarrassment, laughing through her palms. Joanne reached out and gently took her hand. Her palm was soft, almost too soft, warm, honest. Let's go, Joanne nudged. Christiana stood, still smiling. For the first time in a long while, something felt light. As they walked toward the tuck shop, murmurs started, heads turned, eyes followed. Joanne, the principal's daughter, the girl who always had her hair done at expensive salons and her uniforms freshly ironed every morning, was walking with Christiana, the girl whose sandals were glued at the heel and whose bag had one strap sewn with thread. It didn't take long for Christiana to feel the stares. She quickly pulled her hand out of Joanne's. Why are you being nice to me all of a sudden? And people are staring. I don't like it. Joanne looked over and smiled unfazed. Don't mind them. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. And about being nice. I just realized adults are really mean, wicked even. She paused, then added in a hush, don't tell anybody, but during the weekend, I heard the principal, my mother, telling my dad she was going to remove some SS3 students from our school because they haven't completed their school fees. Can you imagine? Christiana's eyes widened. Joanne went on, voice rising slightly. How will they write their exams if they are sent away? Is it their fault their parents can't afford it? The wickedness is just too much. And then see what Mrs. Rebecca did to you today. So annoying, so wicked. And she's even pregnant. What if her baby? Christiana burst into laughter before Joanne could finish. Joanne blinked. Why are you laughing? Christiana covered her mouth, trying to stop. I haven't seen you this passionate since JS1. Joanne folded her arms and smirked. I'm serious, oh. I know, Christiana giggled, but it's like you are trying to save everyone's problems. Like you want to carry the whole world on your back. Joanne shrugged dramatically. Yes, now, the injustice in the world is just too much. They reached the orange tree beside the school field, one of the few shaded spots that hadn't been overtaken by noisy cliques. They sat beneath it, legs stretched out, sharing a meat pie and a chilled bottle of Fanta between them. It felt like something out of a dream. Simple, sweet, surreal. Students walked past, whispering. A few stared openly. Some scoffed. But none of that mattered to Joanne. One person, though, didn't bother to hide her reaction. Priscilla, Joanne's best friend, the queen bee of the class. Her polished sandals clicked against the pavement as she marched over, eyes narrowing at the sight before her. She stopped in front of them, arms folded, lips pursed. Joanne, she said sharply, what's the meaning of this now? I've been looking for you everywhere. She didn't even glance at Christiana as she spoke. And when did you start hanging out with her? Priscilla's voice was sharp now. You said you'd accompany me to ask your mother that stuff. The jealousy was thinly veiled, practically dripping from her words. Joanne gave a tired laugh. Oh, yeah, sorry. Let's go and take care of it. She turned to Christiana and smiled warmly. All right, see you tomorrow. I'll bring the novel. Christina waved back, cheeks flushed with something soft and new, belonging. As Joanne and Priscilla walked away, the tension thickened like humid air. Priscilla couldn't hold it in anymore. But come on, when did hanging out with Christiana start? You know she's from a poor background. Her parents warned me to stay away from people like that. She glanced back with a sneer. They are opportunists. They act innocent, but they are always looking for a way in. Don't let those Nollywood movies fool you, oh. That's how all our house helps are. Thieves pretending to be saints. Joanne stopped walking. She turned to Priscilla slowly, her face unreadable. Priscilla, how can you be so heartless? Her voice cracked slightly with disbelief. Oh my God, I thought you were my friend and that you were sensible. Priscilla blinked. Huh? How can you say such a thing about the less privileged? Do you think it's their fault? Do you think it's Christiana's fault? Didn't you see how Mrs. Rebecca embarrassed her in front of everyone today? Priscilla crossed her arms. Ah, so because of Christiana, you are now calling me senseless. She scoffed. Please, Mrs. Rebecca was right. For all we know, her father gave her the money and she used it for something else. That's how these people behave. That was the final straw. Joanne snapped. I can see you don't have human feelings, she said, her voice firm now. You can go to the principal office by yourself. I don't even know why I was following you. She turned around without another word and walked off, heading back toward the class. Priscilla stood there, stunned, watching her friend disappear. Christina and Joanne started spending more time together. They worked together during break, shared snacks, whispered during boring lessons, and even exchanged notes filled with doodles and silly jokes. For Christiana, Joanne had become a light she didn't know she needed. For Joanne, Christiana was the one person who looked at her and saw something deeper than just the principal's daughter. One afternoon, Joanne visited Christiana's home for the first time. The room was dim, the curtains thin and faded, the air smelling faintly of wood smoke and Dettol. Christiana had laid out a small tray with two bowls of gari and a handful of palm kernels in the middle. Joanne dipped her fingers hesitantly into the bowl, bit into a palm kernel, and chewed slowly. Her eyes widened. I have never eaten anything like this before, she said with a small laugh. It's so natural and delicious. Every time my mother prepares rice and chicken, it feels like I'm just eating the same thing on repeat. This made Christiana pause. She stirred her gari slowly before speaking. You are lucky, she said quietly. We only eat chicken during Christmas or on somebody's birthday. I wish I could eat rice and chicken every day. Joanne laughed softly, trying to keep the mood light. Trust me, you'll get tired. It's not as glamorous as it sounds. After the meal, they moved to Christiana's room, where Christiana had laid a raffia mat on the ground. A small ceiling fan rotated lazily above them, pushing warm air around the room. They lay side by side, hands tucked under their heads, staring at the ceiling as they spoke in hushed tones only close friends used. Your father, when will he be back? Joanne asked, absent mindedly playing with the zip of her school bag beside her. Christina turned her head slightly. I don't know. He usually gets back late, maybe around 6:30 p.m. Why do you ask? Joanne sat up, brushing her skirt gently. Nothing. I wanted to spend more time here with you. That's all. Christina pushed herself up too, facing her. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Then slowly, Joanne reached out. She lifted a hand and gently used the tip of her finger to trace soft feather-light circles on Christiana's cheek. Christina shivered slightly at the touch. Joanne, she whispered. Joanne didn't look away. I can't explain it. How did I never see you before that day? Her voice cracked softly at the edges. She leaned in, her lips brushing closer, closer still. But just before they touched, Christina stood up abruptly. Look at the time, oh, she said, her voice uneven. Won't your mother be worried? It's past 5 p.m. already. Joanne stood too, brushing imaginary dust off her dress. You are right, she smiled faintly. Will you walk me to my house? I still want to talk to you. Christina nodded, trying to gather her breath. Sure, let's go. They walked down the narrow, dusty road together, their sounders kicking up little clouds of earth. Children chased tires in the distance. A goat bleated from a nearby compound, and the sun dipped lazily toward the horizon. But the girls were quiet, each lost in a flurry of thoughts they couldn't quite put into words. As they reached Joanne's compound, a large, well painted duplex with white pillars and potted flowers, the front door opened. Joanne's parents stepped out. Uh-uh, Joanne, look at when you are just coming back, her father said, brows furrowed. He looked at his wife with an unspoken accusation in his tone, like somehow she should have known. I didn't even know you weren't at home. Joanne, her mother, the school principal, snapped sharply. Her tone could cut through clothes. Good evening, ma. Good evening, sir. Christiana greeted quickly, eyes lowered. The principal looked Christiana up and down, her expression unreadable, cold, inspecting, disapproving. Good evening, he finally replied without warmth, before turning to Joanne. Who is she? She's my classmate, Christiana, Joanne said firmly. Classmate? The principal echoed, as though it were a foreign word. She gave Christiana one last glance and turned away. Anyway, I'm going out with your father now. There's food for you at home. I'm sure your brother has already eaten and is playing that video game of his. When I come back, we will discuss the kind of people you hang around with and bring to my house. She didn't look at Christiana again. Her sneer was quiet but sharp, her words hanging heavy in the air as she stepped into the car beside her husband. Christiana turned to Joanne, eyes clouded with humiliation. I have to go. See you in school on Monday. Joanne, noticing the shift in her eyes, gently reached out and held her hand. Don't mind my mother, she said. They will be traveling this weekend. Why not come and spend it with me and my brother? What? You want my father to kill me? Christiana asked, forcing a smile. Joanne laughed. Okay, okay, not the whole weekend. Just Sunday then. We can spend some time together, play card games, maybe watch a Nollywood movie. He brightened. There's one that recently came out. Dorothy, my love. My mother bought the VCD last week. It's a secondary school love story. At the mention of movies, Christiana's face shifted. Something deep and yearning flickered in her eyes. I don't remember the last time I watched a movie, she said softly. We only have the local TV. I watch AIT. Joanne gave a soft grin. Then we'll see a movie on Sunday, yeah? Okay, Christina replied after a moment, the warmth in her voice returning. Joanne squeezed her palm gently before letting go as they waved each other goodbye. That night, Christina could not sleep. She twisted and turned on her mat, arms folded under her head, her face catching the occasional whisper of breeze from the cracked window. But sleep stayed far from her. Her mind kept replaying it. The gentle glide of Joanne's finger on her cheek, the softness of the touch, the way it had sent a ripple through her chest and stirred something she couldn't name. She bit her lower lip, closing her eyes tightly. What if I hadn't stood up? What if I had let her kiss me? She turned to her side, pulling her wrapper tighter as though trying to bury the butterflies in her stomach. But they wouldn't die down. In fact, just thinking about Joanne now made her heart flutter. She regretted it, standing up, ruining the moment. She should have stayed still, let herself feel it fully. Sunday, please come fast. When Sunday finally came, Christina felt like her body couldn't move fast enough. She rushed through service, eyes on the wall clock at the front of the church. She sang the hymns without listening to the lyrics, muttered amen without knowing the prayers. She swept the compound at home so quickly, her younger sister stared at her like something was wrong. As soon as she was done with her chores, she walked into the parlor, face calm. Daddy, I need to go and borrow a textbook from a friend. We have an assignment due tomorrow. Her father, seated on a wooden chair, reading the Sunday Guardian, looked up briefly and nodded. Don't stay long. Be home before evening. Yes, sir, she said quickly, already halfway out the door. By the time she arrived at Joanne's house, it was a few minutes past 1 p.m. The gate was open. She knocked twice before a steward let her in, pointing her upstairs. As soon as Joanne opened the door, a delicious aroma wafted out. roasted chicken, fried rice, spices dancing in the air like celebration. The cook is making us lunch, Joanne said with a grin as she bounced back onto her pink long mattress. We can relax here in my room. She'll call us when it's ready. Christina stood frozen for a second, her eyes wide. The room was painted in soft pink from the curtains to the teddy bears lined up neatly on a shelf. A glowing sign above the mirror read, Love yourself in delicate cursive. Your room is so beautiful, Christina said breathlessly, then slowly lowered herself beside Joanne on the mattress. There was a moment of awkward silence, the kind that stretches between two people aware of how much has changed since their last meeting. Joanne finally broke it with a playful nudge. Eh, so should we play a card game first or should we see the movie? Christina pretended to ponder. Movie, she replied with a small smile. I want to see the secondary school love story. Joanne grinned, stood up, and pulled out a shiny disc from a velvet lined VCD pack. Dorothy, my love, part 1 coming right up. She loaded the disc into the player, then returned to the bed just as the opening credits began rolling. Would you like some juice? She asked casually. Before Christiana could answer, Joanne had already bounded out of the room. She returned a few minutes later, balancing a tray with fried rice, roasted chicken, and 2 glasses of chilled orange juice. Ha! All these things for how many stomachs? Christiana asked, eyes wide. Joanne laughed. Stop overreacting. This isn't a lot, Joe. Christiana chuckled as they both sat cross legged on the bed. The movie played on as they ate side by side, the sound of distant dialogue mixing with the clinking of their cutlery and soft laughter. Then, unexpectedly, Joanne cut a piece of chicken and turned to Christiana. Say ah, she teased. Christiana hesitated for a second, then opened her mouth slightly and allowed Joanne to feed her. She blushed, not to be outdone. Christiana scooped a spoonful of fried rice and held it toward Joanne's lips. It's rice I'll give you, she teased. I'm not using my chicken to play. Joanne laughed so hard she began to cough. Ah, see your mouth, she said between coughs. Christina patted her back gently, quickly handed her the glass of juice, and watched as Joanne took a sip. You okay? She asked. Joanne nodded, still smiling, her cheeks flushed from laughter. Soon, they were lying back on the mattress, the tray empty, the movie near its end. Christiana's head rested lightly on Joanne's shoulder as Joanne absent-mindedly played with strands of her hair. The closing credits of part 1 began to roll, soft music filling the room. Joanne sighed. I don't want to get up to put part 2. Christina laughed quietly. Leave it. I love the ending credits soundtrack. Are you hearing the lyrics? Joanne turned slightly to face her. No one was able to tear them apart, she asked. Christina nodded, smiling. Yeah. They stared at each other for a moment, not smiling, not speaking, just staring. Then Joanne leaned in slightly. You've got a little oil on your lip from the fried rice, she said softly. Christina raised her hand to wipe it, but Joanne caught her wrist gently. Let me help you. She leaned in and pressed her lips to Christiana's, gently, like a question, soft and lingering. They parted for less than a breath, both of them searching each other's eyes. Then Christiana reached up, cupped Joanne's face with both hands, and returned the kiss, deeper this time, slower. Joanne let her hand trail down Christiana's arm, goosebumps rising along her skin as they sank deeper into the moment, lips moving like they'd always known each other. They didn't hear the door open. They didn't hear the footsteps until a gasp, then a voice, sharp and disbelieving. Joanne! They froze, standing in the doorway, bag still in hand, expressions frozen in absolute shock, were Joanne's parents, who had just returned from their trip early. If you enjoyed this story and would love to see more, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment for me. And please go check out my other videos. You'll find it in the playlist section. Just go to my channel. You see similar videos like this. Watch, share with your friends, and yeah, till next time. Bye.